The jinn secret. The desert by dawn was breathtaking. The sands glowed soft gold in the early light, the horizon stretching into a faint pink haze. Layla and Malik walked quietly, their footprints trailing behind them like delicate stitches across a vast golden cloth. The heat had not yet risen, but even in the cool of morning, the desert felt alive, restless, as though it sensed something stirring beneath the dunes. Layla glanced at Malik as they walked. He moved with a grace that didn't quite seem human. His bare feet barely sank into the sand. His long black robes, once torn and dusty, now seemed to shimmer faintly, the fabric stitched through with silver threads that caught the sun. But it was his eyes, molten gold, catching every glimmer of light, that reminded her most of what he truly was. Not of her world Dot, and yet here he was, walking beside her like a companion Dot at last. When the sun climbed higher in their shadows, shortened, Malik led her to a rocky outcrop where the air shimmered strangely, as though the heat had already become unbearable. But when he stepped through it, the air around him rippled, and then cleared. He turned back to her, his golden eyes warm. "Come," he said, holding out his hand. She hesitated only a moment before stepping forward. The air felt cool as she passed through it, and suddenly the desert behind her vanished. She gasped. Dot, they stood in a hidden oasis. Dot, it was unlike anything she had ever seen. Palm trees rose high overhead, their fronds shimmering silver instead of green. Water pulled at their roots, crystal clear, with faint blue light glowing beneath its surface. Strange flowers with petals like folded silk bloomed in the shadows, filling the air with a heady, sweet scent, and the air itself hummed. "This is..." Layla couldn't even finish her thought. Malik smiled faintly. "The oasis of secrets, a place hidden from human eyes." She walked forward slowly, staring at everything. "It's beautiful." "It's more than that," Malik said, following her. "It's old. As old as the desert itself, and it remembers." She turned to him. "Remembers what?" He crouched by the water, trailing his fingers through it. The ripples glowed faintly at his touch. "My people," he said quietly. "The jinn. We were born of fire and air long before humans walked the sands. This oasis is one of the last places that remembers our names." He looked up at her then. "You've heard stories of us, haven't you?" "In your village," Layla nodded. "Stories of tricksters, of whispers in the night, of beings who grant wishes, that always ask for something in return." Malik smiled faintly. "Half true, half not." He stood, his robe swirling around him. "Like smoke, we were once keepers of balance, guardians of the desert, but the Shadow Sultan betrayed that. He wanted more than the sands would give. He broke the pact, consumed Forbidden's power, and tried to enslave humans and jinn alike. We fought him, and we banished him. But we paid dearly." He walked to one of the silver palms and laid his hand against it. The jinn faded. "Many of us bound ourselves into sleep. Some vanished altogether. And those of us who remained were hunted, forgotten, or trapped between worlds." Layla stared at him, her chest tight. "You're one of them." Malik turned back to her, his expression shadowed. "I was meant to sleep with the others. But when the stars began to fall and the Sultan's servants woke, I was called. The desert woke me." He stepped closer to her then, his golden eyes searching hers. "And you woke me too, dreamer." Her breath caught. What do you mean?" She whispered. Malik tilted his head slightly, as though listening to something she could not hear. "The desert hums around you. You hear it. You've always heard it." He lifted his hand slowly, and before she could pull away, he touched her temple with 2 fingers. A warmth bloomed in her mind. Suddenly, she heard it. The song of the desert, louder and clearer than ever. 1,000 voices, soft and low and ancient, weaving together. Whispers of sand and wind, of water hidden deep. Below, of stars blazing above. Her knees went weak and she staggered. Malik caught her gently. When the sound faded, she stared at him in awe. What was that? He smiled faintly. That was the truth you already knew. You are attuned to the desert's heart. And perhaps you are not only meant to help me find the shards. Perhaps you were born for more. She blinked up at him, but I'm just... she said, her voice small. Malik's smile deepened, just a little. Everyone begins as just themselves, he murmured, until they're tested. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The oasis shimmered around them. The air was warm and cool at one dot. Then Malik straightened. We should rest here, he said. Tonight we leave to find the next shard. It's not far, but the Sultan's servant is watching us now. The longer we linger, the greater the danger. Layla swallowed and nodded dot, but as she lay later that afternoon beneath the silver palms, listening to the faint music of the desert, she couldn't stop thinking about the way Malik's hand had lingered at her temple, or the way his golden eyes, soft when they met hers. She wasn't foolish enough to call it love. Not yet, but something was there, quiet and waiting, like the song of the desert itself. That evening, they set out again. The stars overhead were sharp and bright, and the sands glittered faintly in their light. Malik walked beside her in silence, but once, just once, as she stumbled over a hidden stone, his hand shot out and caught hers. He didn't let go. Right away, and Layla didn't mind, not at all. The stars guided them deeper dot by the second night. Qamar village was nothing but a memory. Just a faint glow of lights far to the north, swallowed by the dunes. Malik led the way, his golden eyes sharp even in darkness. Layla followed close behind, her breath quiet in the cool night air, her sandals sinking into the fine, endless sand. The desert stretched before them, like an ocean frozen in time dot. It was more alive out here than she'd ever imagined. Whispered in her ears, carrying fragments of strange words she almost understood. Shapes moved in the corner of her vision. Quick, shimmering things like sparks caught on the edge of firelight. Sometimes she swore the dunes shifted as they passed, as though the sands themselves were making way for them. She had thought she knew the desert. She had been wrong. This is the unseen quarter, Malik said softly as they crested yet another ridge. These sands were hidden long ago after the Sultan's fall. Few mortals ever find their way here. Layla shivered. Why not? Because, he said, glancing back at her with the faintest smile, the jinn don't want them to. That answer stayed with her as they walked on. Later that night, when the winds calmed and the air grew colder, they stopped at a small hollow between two tall dunes. Malik crouched and pressed his palm flat to the sand. The ground glowed faintly, then shivered. A moment later, the sand gave way to reveal a small underground chamber. A perfect circle of stone and pale green light. Layla stared, wide-eyed. How did you know this was here? He gave her another of his small, knowing smiles. The desert speaks to me too, dreamer. I just listen differently than you do. She followed him down into the chamber. The walls shimmered with strange carvings, swirling patterns of stars and waves, and something that might have been wings. This was once a resting place for my kind, Malik said, sitting cross-legged near the center of the room. We'd stop here when the old paths grew long. Now it is forgotten. Layla sat across from him, studying his face in the dim green light. Why did you really ask me to come with you? She asked softly after a long silence, like that. Her gaze, because, he said simply, I've walked these sands alone for far too long. And because the shards won't reveal themselves to me anymore, not fully, but you seem to wake them. Her cheeks warmed. She wasn't sure if it was his words or the way his eyes softened when he said them. She looked down quickly. You could have just said you needed help. That actually made him chuckle. Low and warm like a breeze over hot coals. Perhaps, he admitted. They rested there for a few hours. Layla dozed lightly, waking now and then to find Malik still awake. His gaze fixed upward at the ceiling where faint motes of light danced out when she finally sat up. He was waiting. It's close, he said. The next shard? Yes, but so are his servants. They left the chamber and walked on through the quiet dawn. By midday, the desert changed. The sands here were darker, redder, and littered with jagged black stones that caught the sun and burned at the touch. The air grew heavy, harder to breathe. This is cursed ground, Malik murmured. We are close to the edge of his domain now. You'll feel it. Layla did feel it. The desert sun grew faint, muffled, as if something dark and heavy pressed down over it. The air smelled faintly of ashes. Then, ahead of them, a strange shape rose from the sand. A ruined. It was the shattered remains of a tower, its stones cracked and blackened, half buried in the dunes. At its base glimmered something small and bright. The shard, Malik breathed. They hurried forward. But halfway there, the ground split open. Layla screamed as jagged black tendrils of shadow shot up from the sand, coiling and striking. Malik shoved her behind him, his hands flaring with golden light. The shadows recoiled but did not vanish. Malik turned to her, his face tense. Listen. To me, Layla, he said, his voice low but fierce. This is his domain. His power is strongest here. But you are still attuned. If you can reach the shard, if you can touch it, it will awaken, and then I can seal this place. Layla stared at him, her heart pounding. But no. Time, he said, muting her eyes. You can do this. She swallowed hard, then nodded and ran. The shadows struck at her as she darted past them, the air crackling with dark energy, but she kept her eyes on the shard. A tiny fragment glowing faint blue in the sand. She stumbled, caught herself, and lunged forward, her fingers closing around the shard just as one of the tendrils wrapped around her ankle. The shard flared, white hot in her hand. The tendril hissed and dissolved into smoke, and then everything went still. Layla fell to her knees, clutching the shard, gasping for it. Breath. Malik was at her side in an instant, his hands on her shoulders. You did it, he murmured, his voice low with awe. You woke it. Layla looked down at the shard, still glowing faintly in her palm. I didn't think I could, she whispered. You're stronger than you think, he said, his golden eyes warm on hers. Their faces were close now. Closer than before, and for just a heartbeat, Layla thought he might lean in, that his golden gaze might drown her entirely. But he straightened, his expression calm again. Come, he said, though his hand lingered at her back. We've taken one more step, but the hardest part is still ahead. Layla stood, the shard clutched tight in her fingers, the heat of it sinking into her skin, and as they walked away from the ruin, she could feel it. Something had shifted between them. It wasn't just the shard that had awakened. Something else had too.